Hello, my name is Joey Keller. This is the Marketing Automation Show. Welcome. Today I'm going to address the topic of sending emails via Mautic 5. A bunch of things changed since Mautic 4, and most of the videos are covering Mautic 4 right now. So I wanted to make another video to show you what the differences are between Mautic 4 and 5 so you can properly install email sending into your Mautic. Mostly in this video, I'm going to cover Amazon SES, but I also try to give you knowledge so you can choose the proper components when you are sending with another API or SMTP platform. I might be rambling on a little bit too long about the composer usage, but please watch it until the end because it will actually all make sense. This video also has a blog post part on my website, joeykeller.com. Please check it out. And there is another video which I created as a second part of this video actually, and that's focusing on the queue management in Mautic 5. So how the email handling and management actually changed between 4 and 5. You should watch the second video as well. So I will exactly explain how the queue works, how the email sending works, how the scheduling emails works as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this will be very useful for you. And let's talk about email sending in Mautic 5. A bunch of things have changed in comparison to Mautic 4. I would like to cover those first. And I'm going to show you how to connect with your SMTP and what the changes are with Mautic 4 and what you should watch out for and what the tricks are. So a couple of basic things, why things are changing in Mautic 5. Why can't we just have it the same way like it was before? It's very important to know that Mautic is based on Symfony, and that's a framework. So when you see a Mautic application, most of the code is actually coming from another software called Symfony. Mautic relies on this and uses those processes. So a bunch of people are developing Symfony, and Mautic is benefiting from these developments, but also has to be changed to be able to run that code. And sometimes we have to do things a little bit differently, but most of the time these things making the software more stable, more advanced, more reliable, and less bugs. So a couple of things. Mautic 4 was based on Symfony 4, Mautic 5 is on Symfony 5.4. In Mautic 4 we had Swift Mailer, that's the component which was sending out an email. In Mautic 5 we have Symfony Mailer, which is a lot more powerful. It can do a lot more things, but maybe not just right now. It can do a lot of good things already now, amazing things, but later, so it has a bigger potential to develop into a really cool mailing service. In Mautic 4, you could just choose your third-party transport. So the good people who coded Mautic 4, they already put your Amazon in there, your SendGrid, so you could just choose it from a drop-down. In Mautic 5, you have to do the work yourself. And the reason for that is because Symfony, the framework what Mautic is based on, created these third-party transports already. Now the thing is that they maybe didn't create these transports with a huge mailer perspective, but it's something what you can already start with when you start your projects. When you start sending, you can already use these. But I'm going to cover this a little bit later. So you got something new, we got something new, but we also got a lot of things what we have to improve. In Mautic 4, the feedback loop webhooks, and I'm going to cover that in case you don't know what feedback loop is. The feedback loop webhooks were already built in. In Mautic 5, these are newly created and continuously created by the contributors and also Mautic core coders, and they are not built in. You have to add them as a plugin. And there are a couple of other things which I'm covering in my other tutorial, which is focusing on the queue management, but I would like to mention it here as well. So in Mautic 4 we had a cron queue, so there was a folder and you were calling a command periodically and it would send out the emails. In Mautic 5, we have it as a service, which is pretty cool because it's a persistent service. So once the email is created, saved in the database, it's right away sent out. So yeah, in Mautic 4, we had a file queue. In 5, we have a database queue, which makes everything a lot faster. In Mautic 4, the challenge was to send emails very fast. So you would have to do like multiple commands running at the same time, multiple threads. In Mautic 5, we have to dial down the speed because it's so fast that you are sending out emails so fast that it's amazing. So you rather have to like scale it down or in general maintain the speed. And also in Mautic 4, we had a simple config for the emails, which means you just had to punch in the username, the password, maybe a server, but most of the time not even that. And in Mautic 5, you have to use the so-called DSN config, which is like in one line you are adding everything: password, username, server, port, and extra configuration options. And it's also pretty cool. You just have to learn how to use it. And once you learn it, it's amazing, believe me. So I want to mention one more thing, which is a huge change. So you have to figure out a very good way to learn the documentation of Symfony as well, and not just, check out the Mautic forums, because a lot of things which I'm covering now here, you can find in the Symfony documentation. You just have to dig a little bit deeper. So please, when you complain that Mautic is under-documented, just think about it that a bunch of things are already documented in the Symfony docs, and it makes sense to look there as well. So the other thing I want to talk about is a composer, because Mautic 5 is really, really hard to run without composer. There are a bunch of components in the software which you can add only via the composer software. You can imagine like a recipe book. So if Mautic or a project would be a sandwich, then you would install it with create project sandwich hamburger, let's say. So that puts your sandwich together. But if you would like to change your recipe because you realize, okay, I want to add tomato and cheese in it too, you would have to write it down in the recipe that from this day on, we also include the tomato and cheese, which we're getting from the supermarket. And you would add also the appropriate line. If you want to add more patties to it, you would write it in the recipe. From this day on, we are adding this ingredients to the sandwich, and this is where we are getting it from. So the composer is basically only just reading the recipe, what you save in a JSON file on your computer, and making sure that you always create the same result. So basically the composer JSON is a recipe book itself. The composer look would be a chef who is watching over your qualities. In the vendor folder, you would put all the ingredients you getting from different sources, and the final application would be the sandwich itself in this example. In order to maintain your Mautic, you will have to learn how composer works, and please don't be afraid of it. It's not so complicated. It's just a couple of commands. The advantages of composer is that you always have fresh ingredients in your software. You always use the accurate recipe. So all the parts which is needed for your sending is in the recipe. You can't delete parts from the Mautic folder structure anymore. You have to change the composer recipe basically in order to have your software as one whole, to make sure that it's functioning properly and all the vendor components are accounted for, and this is going to result in high standards, and your Mautic will actually work. So if you don't know how composer works, please learn it. I will give you some commands now as well, but it makes sense to learn a little bit more about composer. And a couple more things about Mautic 5. Don't use shared servers, don't install in a subfolder in some kind of environment, and don't do a zip install anymore like you used to do. So don't do these things, because if you do it, nobody will be able to help you. Just use Composer or Git installs for your next projects, or use a Docker image. That's even better. So I'm a big fan of the Composer install. You will find also related commands, actually step-by-step instructions on my website. let's go back to email sending, and you will understand why I was talking about Composer so much, because all the parts which I'm mentioning here are installed by Composer to make sure that the right part is downloaded, it has the right dependencies, and it just works. Often the problem comes from that someone just installs one part of the software because they saw a GitHub repository, but they never install the dependencies. So there's software and half of it is missing. With Composer, that's not happening anymore. So let's look at the email sending itself, how it's built up, how it's created in Mautic, or how to use it in Mautic. So I will mostly talk about the Amazon SES environment because it's one of the most popular ones. It's definitely the cheapest one, super reliable, and I use it a lot. I really tested it out. I spent like half years testing how Amazon SES works in Mautic, and in which parts, which components I need to run it properly to have all the parts which I need to send out emails in a large scale, small scale, reliable, and so on. So you should think about the email sending components as building blocks, as Lego blocks here. The red representing Mautic itself, and two more blocks which are missing as a default for Mautic, so you have to grab it from somewhere. One of them is a feedback loop, and the other one is an Amazon API connection. Normally you would send out emails via SMTP, but that's just not too fast, so we're gonna send out via API. There's other reasons for that, why we are doing this. I will also cover it in this video. So first I want to cover feedback loop. What is that? And if you know this, just forward this video. So when you send out an email to a contact, Mautic will do some kind of internal process where the email itself is put together, and then this email will be sent to Amazon servers via API call, not SMTP, which is a very slow protocol. It's like, hi, how are you? I'm good. This is my name. Oh, great, good to know, blah, blah, blah. This is how SMTP communication is. With API, is like, here's the stuff, thank you. So it's a lot faster. It's 4 times faster as SMTP. So Amazon will receive it and they will try to deliver it. And from this moment on, it will be just good old SMTP. So the email goes out on the open internet. The recipient's SMTP server gives some kind of response. For example, thank you, I will deliver it, or I don't know who this user is. And if it's a negative response, like for example, you are blocked, or I don't know who this person is, it will send back an email to Amazon, not to you, but to Amazon, that, hey, I don't know where this guy is. And Amazon will let you know via SNS webhook, which you also set up in Mautic. And SNS webhook that, hey, this email address is no good. And then you will mark this person as a bounce. So this whole process here is called a feedback loop. I just wanted to lay out so you can troubleshoot and understand what really happens. So in order this to work, this whole thing that you are sending emails and you're getting the feedback, you need 2 things. The one, a method to send email with, which is included in Mautic if you use SMTP, but not API. So you need that. And you need Amazon SES feedback loop management something to understand the feedback loop. So you need to understand how to send emails, and you need to be able to process the information coming back to you. So we need 2 more building blocks. And the trick here is that one of them will go into your vendor folder. So this is something that we are installing as a part of the software itself, which will be intertied into Symfony, and it will be a part of Symfony. So you will be able to, seamlessly send emails. And the other one is a plugin. And this plugin is overwriting some ways how Mautic works, and the incoming feedback loop, incoming feedback message that, for example, this email is no good, will be understood by this plugin, and it will pass the information to Mautic that, hey, set this as bounce. So if you are using SMTP transport and not API, so you're connecting to Mautic, to Amazon via SMTP, there is no feedback loop available for you. You will be not able to understand the messages. You're just sending out emails, and the messages will be coming back to you the good old way in bounce emails, which you have to process inside of Mautic by receiving those emails. I'm not going to cover that. It's just tool technology. We're not using that. But there is one plus feature in the SMTP that the guys who make Symfony apparently use SMTP a lot. So they actually added lots of ways to control the speed of an SMTP transport. So if you are interested in how to scale your SMTP connection, then you can read about it in the Symfony docs. There are a bunch of ways they're describing how you can send email slower. So that's a positive thing, that you can control the speed of the email, but I'm not using it. So let's talk about API. So if we're talking about API, there's a bunch of ways you can create your set of Amazon connection there and back. You can have, first of all, you can install Symfony Mailer. And this is what I'm recommending from the very beginning, since I published my Mautic 5 tutorials, to install the Symfony Amazon Mailer extension. It's a component what you can install via Composer. And as a second thing, you should have a plugin which will be reading the feedback loop. So this one is for sending, and this one is for reading the feedback loop. As you see, you can mix and match. So you can have, for example, here I'm having the same for sending, but here I'm having someone else's feedback loop. They do all the same. They just, email a message coming in, not an email, a message is coming in via SNS in the Amazon feedback loop, and they're just reading that, hey, this person bounced or that person bounced. I even wrote one myself. It also just does that. The message coming back from Amazon, I couldn't deliver this email, and I'm marking the person as bounced. And as you can see, there's a fourth plugin here where you don't need the Amazon component in Symfony at all, because this one is managing 2-in-1. So you just need one single plugin and it will do both. It will send and use the feedback loop as well. So I was very excited when I discovered it, and I was like, oh man, there are so many different options. Which one is the best? So I started to test them out. Before I go further, if you watch this video now when I created it, these are pretty much the only choices, but I bet there will be a lot more, which will be able to do a lot more things upon sending. So I would like to explain a little bit what these components do. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what this here does when sending the email. So like I said before, an email is being sent to a contact. So Amazon does something, Mautic does something, it puts together a little email and gets ready for the sending. The email will be sent to the transport. This is inside of Mautic code. The email is transferred to a place where it's actually leaving Mautic and going to your SMTP partner. And the Symfony component, or in fact this plugin as well, they do the following things. They will put a header together, the body together, they will decode the DSN. This is the setting, I'm gonna show you later, this is the setting which describes your username, your password, and other settings. And if there are some extra settings, like for example, not like handle it with care, but let's say send this slower or wait 30 seconds before sending the next one, there's a bunch of things we can still do, or rate limiting, like don't send more than one email per minute or second. Then this is the part where this component is processing this information and then sends it to Amazon SES. And here there's a lot of things you can do, like not you, but the software developers who are creating these amazing transports, they can do a lot of things. So if you are coding one yourself, and that's why you're watching the video, then please use the configuration there and make amazing things happen. And then of course it's gonna do the API call to Amazon. They try to deliver it. Everything from here is good old SMTP, like 1980s. They try to deliver, there's some kind of response. And then there's a feedback loop happening again. And this is the part where the plugin comes into question. Like here, I also have this plugin, this plugin, this plugin, and this plugin. All of them do this. All of them try to process that payload. They identify the payload first of all. So they will look at the Mautic settings and say, hey, Are we sending via Amazon or what? Because if we're sending by Amazon and this is an Amazon payload, then we are accepting it. If you're not sending by Amazon and this is an Amazon payload, we're just gonna ignore it. So they verified the DSN. Are we the ones actually sending it? Then they also identify the payload. Is it actually a bounce message, or is it just, you know, checking if we're still alive? What is that? And then eventually marks as a bounce email. And if you watch this video upon premiere, then there is right now no difference in marking the bounced emails. But I can imagine that in the future we will mark emails differently if it's a bounce, differently if it's a complaint. And other systems have other feedback loops as well, other options. They're telling other information why that email wasn't delivered. So this can be all noted in Mautic, and the feedback loop plugin is the one which manages the right information. It will push the right info into the contacts profile and saying, hey, this is blocked, for example, or this doesn't exist. The options are limitless. Right now they just bounced or you know, I think that's it. Basically, other things we are not even processing. We could even process deliveries if we wanted to, if we are ready to cope with the amount of emails or SNS messages coming in. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. I know this is a deep dive, but I really wanted to make just one video so I don't have to make like 100 extra videos. And I wanted to make sure that I really cover everything. So when you choose a component, what you should always watch out for, like you don't have to, you know, use these, but if there is something new in GitHub and you try, then what you should watch out for is, in case of Amazon SES, does this component handle all the regions? Maybe new regions are added. Are they all covered? Does it manages sleep and threshold, for example? So can you chop up your email messaging, your email sending in a way that you have a little break between emails? This is very good if you are warming up an IP or you just want to send slow. Does it manage the sending speed limits? For example, if you have a new Amazon account, your limit is 14 emails per second. Does your component let you send faster than this? And if yes, then how can you limit it? And if we're talking about the feedback loop or the feedback loop plugin, then there could be one which is maybe managing also SMTPs. Does it save the reason for the bounce, or it also saves reason for complaint, or what else does it do? And another question, because here from all these options, this one, for example, is 2-in-1, so it's going to send and receive the feedback loop as well. So that's also an information when you choose your components. When you do this mix and match, then you should always think about it. What's the best for you? So I actually did the work. I did a comparison of all these different features, and yeah, this is the landscape right now. So all of them are able to send mail via API to Amazon SES, which is great. None of them will work for SMTP because SMTP is already built in, so why would they do that? But maybe someone will add another feature like that, so I will, you know, make sense to have this comp. And the e-tailers version is also standalone, so I can highly recommend it. But the really cool stuff is here. So many of us are struggling with setting up rate limits, that we're not sending faster than a certain speed. Now the e-tailers plugin is actually amazing. When you first enable it, it will read out your current speed, what is allowed by Amazon SES, and set it as a rate limit. So it's not gonna let you send faster than it's allowed. You don't have to worry about rate limiting at all. But if you want to, you can pass this information via a config information in the DSN. And I have a tutorial on my website where it's called Q Mastery, I think. And there you can learn more about how the rate limiting itself works. So now we are coming to the part where I'm going to show you how to actually set this up. I recommend you to go with this one. and this is going to be reflected in my in this video as well. So first is you need to install the plugin. If you installed this one here, the Amazon Mailer, you need to remove it. So you have to remove it from your composer file basically, because they're not gonna play well together. So you do this, install this plugin, and this plugin will offer you, like enable you to send email if you have Mautic plus SES plus API. This should be default without the exclamation mark. Then you add your Amazon username and password and the region and your region as well. The second thing is you need to set up your feedback loop, and this particular plugin will listen here. So your Mautic instance mailer callback. If you would install mine, for example, mine is listening somewhere else. I think it's mailer Amazon_SES/callback or something like that. Don't have multiple options at the same time. So make sure that if you are using this, then this is your feedback loop, what you have to set up in SNS. If you don't know how to set up an SNS, I have an amazing video about this where I'm explaining everything you have to know about setting up the feedback loops. And I think this is pretty much it. You are done. One more thing, actually. You need to run some commands to send out your emails. And I really wanted to put it in this tutorial, but it would have been way too long, so I created another tutorial, and that's called "This is how email queuing works in Mautic 5." I recommend you to check it out here on YouTube. I will try to put also a link here in the show notes. Thanks for watching.